but last night we created love. Love was definitely in the air.
Awesome.
Cool, Dan. So we're about 2 minutes from going live, and we want to welcome everyone on board. There are about 600 logins, so about 1,800 people busy watching us now live on Zoom, and a few hundred watching us on YouTube. And our largest panel ever was, in fact, last week Sunday, where we have, by all accounts now, between people who've watched the video, participated in YouTube and Zoom, probably about 19,000 people.
Wow.
We actually tuned in while we discussed kickstarting the South African economy. And that was absolutely amazing. And we're certainly going to have a follow-up session to that. The highlight was, of course, when our Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, tried to join on the panel without notifying us, and he just couldn't get in. So we apologize, but if Tito wants to be part of this, he needs to actually arrive on time for these sessions. So, Dan, I'm not sure you'll have 19,000 people tonight in your audience, but you're certainly going to have a huge audience because now it's that time. People are starting to contemplate work again. How long have you been out of the office? You've been based at WeWork. How long have you not been in your office?
I was going to say about 6.5 years that I've been running my business. I've been chirped and teased over the years, working from Virgin Active, working from every coffee shop in town, working from home, all over the show. We've bounced around a couple of different formal offices over the years and shared space. But yeah, for about the last 2 months, been working pretty much from home. So I'm quite fortunate, quite used to it. So it hasn't had to be a huge adjustment from my side. The internet's good, it's comfortable, there's good coffee here, so it's pretty good.
And you've got your mother looking after you there, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the most important thing. When you take your mother to work, it's not the same. But given the fact that you normally are at WeWork, in 6 months' time, Dan, do you think WeWork's going to still be there? Thumb up or thumb down? And I'm going to ask everyone on the panel to vote. Dan thinks WeWork will still be there in 6 months' time. Ian?
Sorry?
Do you think WeWork will still be there in 6 months' time?
Yes, I do think so. Well, if not WeWork, I think there will still be some form of co-working spaces around for sure. And in the future, I think they might become a bit more prominent.
Yinks, will WeWork be there?
Yeah, I think so. I think people will give up their large offices and maybe just meet in central places less frequently than they do now. And then I do think having these massive office spaces won't necessarily be the world of the future. So I think for especially smaller businesses, I think those as offerings are great potential. So I hope they are still there.
Cool. Guys, everyone else who we haven't asked because we're about to start the panel. WeWork there in 6 months, yes or no? Or yes or no?
Yes.
I'm going to bet no. Cool. With that, on behalf of the South African Jewish Report, I want to welcome everyone onto the panel. We've got an amazing set of panelists tonight, and your host for the night is the man that we always give thanks to for greasing the wheels behind the scenes, and that's Dan Stillerman. And tonight, rather than being backstage and pulling all the knobs, I'm going to be doing that. Dan's going to be out front and chairing tonight's panel, so he will be introducing that panel to everyone. But this is the 17th panel that we've put on during lockdown for the South African Jewish Report, and it is just such a pleasure that we can provide this service not only to our own community, but to the general South African community as well. We've had medical panels and psychologists and health and nutrition and wellness people, and we've done exercise online, and we've played games. We've had quiz night and the Amazing Race and The Bachelor, but we've attempted to educate, inform, and entertain people during this process. And none of this would be possible without the support of the Jewish Report newspaper. And there are two things that we are enormously proud of. The one is that when everyone else was closing down, when the Sunday Times was cutting people's salaries by 30%, when Amalgamated Media was closing down and Caxton were cutting all their titles, we decided to continue to print. And we have 55,000 readers every week, both in hard copy and online, and we're continuing to publish every single week. And we distribute not only to the Pick and Pays and the Checkers and the Woolworths and the Discams where people are going to, but we also took the brave decision to start delivering to apartment buildings, blocks of flats, townhouses as well, because communication and information during this period is an absolute gift. And therefore, it's such a great pleasure to not just be able to produce the Jewish Report, which we believe is probably the best quality publication in South Africa by far, but we also, in fact, decided to start having these panels. And as I said before, this is the 17th panel that we're putting together. And as the world has changed, and as the last few months have gone by, and we're emerging slowly from crisis into a new reality, we have to start contemplating what that new reality looks like. And so last Sunday, we had our panel watched by about 19,000 people on how to kickstart the South African economy. And tonight, Dan will be hosting a panel on exactly what the new world of work will look like. And that's why we've entitled tonight's panel, The Brave New Work. But before we begin that panel, I want to remind you that the Jewish Report has an amazing editor in Pedicross Maunder, has a remarkable team of journalists and admin staff and salespeople, and none of this would be possible without your support. So at the start of every panel, we play you a little advert for the Jewish Report, and we ask you to please give generously. As you know, it is a free publication distributed throughout South Africa to tens of thousands of people free of charge every week. And you can really help to make sure that that continues. So Dan, are you playing an advert for us?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Howard Saxton, Chairman of the South African Jewish Report. And we at the Jewish Report believe that Jewish organizations would be made or broken by how they serve their community during this impossibly difficult time. Our first decision was to continue to publish and to deliver newspapers not just to shops, but to people's townhouses and apartment blocks as well. Because feeling part of a community is one of the greatest services we could ever deliver to the Jews of South Africa. Our second decision was to create a platform for information, education and entertainment for the entire Jewish community and for South Africa as a whole. Over the past few weeks, we have created Zoom panels that have attracted tens of thousands of viewers. Some of the best healthcare specialists in South Africa gave practical advice on how to stay safe during Corona. Psychologists taught people how to stay sane, and wellness experts made sure that our minds and bodies were kept fit and healthy. One of the things we are most proud of is how we have highlighted the work done by so many Jews and Jewish organizations in feeding the needy and producing masks for both our own community as well as the townships. But now we at the Jewish Report face our own challenges to survive as advertising dries up. And so we are appealing to you. If you are one of our 55,000 readers, or if you are amongst the tens of thousands of people who have enjoyed our Zoom panels, now we at the Jewish Report are asking for your support. Please give generously to us so we can continue to publish and continue to serve you in this remarkable fashion.
So if you would like to give us a donation, what you can see at the screen is either a Zapper code that you can zap and make a donation to the Jewish Report, or alternatively, you can use wallet.com/pay/SAJR. Or alternatively, the third way, our banking details are on the screen. And I know people find it fairly difficult to take down all of this information. So maybe just pick up your phone, take a picture of the Jewish Report banking details, which Dan will put back for 1 second so people can take a photograph
in the chat.
Yes, put it in the chat. So take a picture of that, and really thank you so much for your unbelievable generosity that we've experienced over the last few months. And with that, I will fade into the background behind the scenes and hand over for your host for this evening, Dan Stillerman.
Thank you so much, Howie, and to the team at the Jewish Report for all these panels and for the opportunity for me to be front, and take the spotlight this evening. It's a great privilege, and thank you so much to our wonderful panelists for being so on board and for being with us this evening. So just a quick intro. I'm going to go on my screen over here. We've got Leslie Ann Gatter, and Leslie Ann is the head of people at Investec, previously the head of learning and development at Investec. So welcome, Leslie. Welcome, Leslie Ann. Thanks for joining us. We've got Rafilwe Nyoni. Rafilwe is the CEO of Mindful Revolution. We've got Ian Furr, quite a well-known name in South Africa, the founder of the Sorbet Group and also the co-founder of the Hatch Institute in recent months. We've got Yael Rosen, who's an industrial psychologist and co-founder of Fervor, so welcome to Yael. And Amanda Porter, last but not least. Amanda is the head of culture at Discovery. So thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. We're going to get straight into it. I'm going to start off with asking Amanda. So as head of culture at Discovery, you've obviously had a challenging few weeks, but I understand that you've got approximately 7,000 people, I think, in your Sandton campus, and I think you mentioned a number of about 85% of the national staff complement in Discovery has transformed over the last few weeks to a work from home quite successfully. So, how's that been for you guys? What have you found? What have been the biggest challenges?
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Howie, and just thank you for inviting me onto the webinar. And just a huge thank you to you guys for what you've done over the past couple of weeks. The webinars have been amazing. I think that they've kept us informed, they've galvanized, and they've helped people to feel connected. And I think everybody's very appreciative about that. Yes, so about 85% of our employees are working from home at the moment, and since lockdown, and that is how they have been. I wasn't particularly completely involved in that process, but for the most part, it certainly felt very smooth. A COVID-19 team was set up right at the emergence of the pandemic reality, and this team was already meeting daily to address any obstacles and give clear instructions on the way forward. And really, their leadership has been remarkable. The resilience and the determination of our people to make things work has been incredibly astounding. And what we've seen is within a few days, we had procured laptops, and we were using couriers to deliver them to people's homes. And our IT support teams were working round the clock to assist people. We had found multiple ways to ensure that our employees had connectivity. Numerous touch points were set up, available 24/7 for managers and employees to reach out and address any difficulties, including healthy company, to address the emotional well-being of our employees. People weren't able to take home chairs and monitors and any other parts of their workstations. And what you really saw was our culture manifesting in the deeds and actions of our people. If I consider perhaps any of the difficulties maybe that people might have faced, is probably in the initial settle, the establishment of routine and schedules. But with time and compassion and real care, it really resolved. It really is remarkable to see the tenacity and the resilience of our people.
Sure, that's remarkable. That's great. I'm going to move over to Leslie Ann. How has the shift to remote work been from Investec's perspective?
Yeah, I think similarly to how Amanda described it, the organization is 95% offsite now, and we also moved within a week. We have a crisis management team that stepped in on leadership, which is always helpful as a practice in such an event, and we employed business continuity plans that we've had in existence for some time. I think, again, praise to our ops teams and IT teams. The business runs as if we are all in that building, and it's been a pretty seamless event. And then just the real resilience of people, and I don't think this is specific to our people necessarily, this is just humanity, gratitude for jobs, putting their heads down and really doing all of what they can to keep everything going in particularly difficult circumstances. So yeah, I think the organization, like many, has done itself proud in lots of ways.
So, well, that's fantastic to hear. We're going to shift the focus to Ian for a moment now. Ian, I'm not sure how many months ago, but you're no longer involved at Sorbet after founding the business and running and managing the business for many years. And I mean, your focus at the moment in your consultancy is culture and really coaching people and applying some of the lessons and principles that you learned and I think mastered over your time at Sorbet. How important would you say culture and leadership are in this time?
Hi, thanks, Dan. Thanks very much for having me on the show here tonight. Yes, I think culture is absolutely critical, both leadership and culture. So you can see, in my experience now at the Hatch Institute, in terms of our coaching and consulting and our clients, we've focused largely on service and leadership and culture. And I've watched carefully as these clients of mine have tried to handle the COVID situation and the lockdown. And those that have been able to show empathy and caring, and those that have really made the priority of looking at people and making sure that their health is good, their physical health, their psychological health, their financial health, and that they're doing okay, those are the ones that are getting the best feedback from the staff in terms of positive reaction and positivity and loyalty. So it's all about leadership, really, about leadership and culture. The other companies that are not doing that are focusing on cost cutting and keeping all the costs down and retrenching and laying off people, well, obviously there's a different reaction from the staff. The staff are looking at being a little bit more unhappy. There's a bit of resentment. There's a bit of anger. And then, of course, the productivity levels are low and the commitment and the loyalty is absent. So it's really important that we actually find a new breed of leader in South Africa, a breed that I call culture-driven leaders who go out there and really make a difference, not only in terms of the normal leadership style, but of a new leadership style that also includes being able to manage a sort of diverse and polarized socio-political environment and an economic environment which has got lots of challenges, and also now with the COVID situation, even more so. So the leaders of tomorrow have to be skilled at all these different types of things, and it's going to be an exciting time for new leaders in South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And Refillware, so you guys have been working with large teams. I think you did a presentation the other day to about 200 staff members at one of your clients. And obviously you guys use mindfulness as a tool for mental health and well-being. So how important would you say obviously things have been evolving over the past few years and more awareness about the importance of mental health and well-being in the workplace. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that drastically increase over this period, the real need for mental health.
Well, thank you so much. I firstly wanted to thank the panelists who acted like they recognized me when I came on screen. I looked like a person earlier. Thank you for not pointing it out. Very shower. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, mindfulness speaks to human element and who we are as human beings, as individuals, especially operating within formal working environments. We walk into these industries with our CV, right?
Sorry, Rafil, I don't want to interrupt you, but the volume seems a little bit low. I don't know if it's just on my side. I'm not sure if you can somehow just turn up the volume or... I'm seeing a few messages in the chat as well. So if you can just somehow get the microphone closer.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
It's still a little bit soft. It might be a setting on your machine. Okay, so maybe we should give you a minute just to tweak some of the settings there.
Okay, maybe just hop on and I'll try to resolve this on my side.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So we're going to shift the focus to Yael for a couple of moments while Rafil gets her sound right. So Yael, you're an industrial psychologist and you co-founded Fervor a couple of years ago. So you've been doing a lot of work in this time, and you mentioned to me over the last couple of days some of the interventions that you've been doing and some of the specific tools and techniques that you've been implementing in your training and in your consulting work with clients. What have you seen over the past few weeks? Which clients are really getting it right? Can you give us a few examples? And what are you seeing as the big priorities right now?
Well, Dan, thanks so much for having me on the panel, firstly, and to Howie too. So, I mean, we work with a broad range of different clients, and I think a lot of them have done really amazing things in the last few weeks. But I think off the top of my head, I think there are 3 clients for me that stand out. The first is Jag Method. Another one is Parcel Ninja. I'm sure some of you guys know these businesses, as well as Cars.coza. And I think if I think about the similarities across these 3 organizations and what they've done really well, I think the first thing comes to the communication and their ability to make swift and fast decisions, communicate continuously with the teams at an organizational, at a team and at an individual level. I think that's been really, really important. I think all of them have also regularly tracked their key metrics that are going to help these businesses stay afloat, continue to grow in this time. And even though they've done that and they focused on the performance of their organizations, they haven't forgot the individual. So they've had very tailored approaches. Leaders have been very active in reaching out, connecting with individuals, assessing how they're feeling, what challenges are they facing. I think the analogy has been used quite a lot lately that we all are in the same storm, but we might not necessarily be in the same boat. So working parents is very different to someone working in isolation. Parents who are divorced, who are separated from their children and the challenges that they have. And so they have spent a lot of time tailoring needs of employees quite significantly. And I think the last thing that's been really impactful is their ability to shift their thinking around their current strategy and help businesses and their employees understand what is expected of them. What are their goals for right now, for this week? What do they need to work on in order to help the business progress forward, and give them that clarity and that guidance, and check in with them and assess what kind of support they need to do their absolute best. So I think for me, those are probably the top 3 things.
So just to summarize your top 3 things, I think your first one was communication. That's constant communication. I mean, people say, especially in this time, there's no such thing as over communicating, I think. So that was number 1. Your second point?
My second point is people come first. So put your people first, take the time and the effort to care for them on an individual level, because every person is really experiencing this massive trauma quite differently from each other, even though we are kind of going through it together at the same time. And lastly, I think the ability to think quick, to pivot, to think about what does this mean for my business? What does this mean for each team? What does this mean for individuals? Communicate that and make that clear so that people know exactly what they're working towards to help the business progress forward.
Fantastic. Great. Those are great insights. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So Rafil, we're back to you. I think your sound is sorted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Fantastic. So thank you again. I guess I was just meant to speak after Yael, because what I wanted to say is that we walk into these corporate industries and whatever business you're walking into, formal working environments with our professional CVs, these things that prove who we are, what our skills are, what we accomplished at, and what we can do. But very rarely do we talk about our personal CVs, right? And that's really how we operate and how we come into an organization. And during this time, we've seen the rise of the importance of the human resource, where human beings are really getting taken care of. And we're really proud to work with the organizations that we work with, because they've always been prioritizing their human resources, but more so now in a time where there's a lot of choicelessness and there are a lot of decisions that people can't make. I think in so many ways what we are experiencing and what we've experienced during this COVID-19 crisis, during lockdown, and now as we move through the other stages of lockdown, is really mourning. We're mourning our old lives. We're mourning what we knew as life to be. And, we're moving into this world that we have no idea what it looks like. It's really scary. Fear, anxiety are completely normal emotions. And operating within the mindfulness space means that we're able to help people navigate through some of those things. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross writes about the 5 stages of grief. And I feel that we've finally reached the point where it's acceptance. But the stages are, you know, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and now we're at acceptance. You know, we've seen that lockdown, we're in stage 4 now, we're able to do a little bit more, but even this has its anxieties because we don't know what this world that we're now facing looks like. So, you know, we talk about calories as well, and I've definitely been struggling with social distancing from the fridge, and we know what calories mean in the food sense, but we have emotional calories, you know, we have mental calories, we have things that we consume that we don't necessarily know how to digest, and we don't necessarily have the tools to digest them. And this is where mindfulness really plays a part, you know, just in terms of helping us process rather than protecting, helping us to work through things rather than putting up the defenses. From an entrepreneurship perspective, adaptability has been the key word, you know. You know, in a world where clarity is power, the landscapes are shifting underneath our feet every single day, and we're really learning that it's true that change is the only constant. So we've constantly had to adapt to meet people where they are, but also to meet ourselves where we are. You know, we say that our definition of productivity right now is really self-care, because if we can take care of ourselves, we can practice resilience, we can manage our energy, we can show up for the work that we do, and we can also show up for the people that need us on a more personal basis. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rafil. And I know you'll be sharing some practical tools a little bit later this evening. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think everyone will benefit significantly from that. So thank you. We're going to put up a poll now and just check in terms of your day-to-day work at the moment. If you are working from home, how are you finding it? Are you loving it? Are you more productive than before? I know personally, I took a few days to kind of recalibrate. A lot of people took a few days or a couple of weeks. But I've spoken to a number of people lately that are actually saying they are a whole lot more productive at the moment, and more productive than they used to be when they were permanently in the office. So interesting to see those numbers coming through. You can vote. We'll leave it up for another 5 seconds or so. Okay, we're going to share those results because I see that Howie has stopped and he's shared it, and we can see that a lot of people, most people are loving it. 36% of people are loving working from home and a whole lot more productive than before. And 31% are saying it's a huge challenge, but I'm surviving. So that's good, positive signs. I mean, add that up, 67, two-thirds of our audience is managing, is either happy and productive and thriving or coping and surviving. So that's fantastic. So Amanda, I want to actually come back to you, and I want to ask you, what are some of the practical ways that you guys at Discovery have just taken the lead and helped to keep people connected? You mentioned, 85% of the workforce working from home. So what are the practical steps on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis that you guys have taken from right at the top, the leadership, executive team, the senior managers, and how are people doing things on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis to maintain that connection and productivity? I think you're just on mute. There we go.
Thanks, Dan. I'm good. So I really believe that it does come down to our culture. And for me, that's really my focus, is that really that culture is of absolute importance. I've been looking after the Discovery culture for over 20 years now. It's a long time. I started at Discovery when I was 3, just so we're clear. But if your culture is strong, you can trust people to do the right thing. If your culture is strong, you can trust people to be independent, autonomous, and entrepreneurial. If your culture is strong, your business processes don't need to be so prescriptive because everybody understands the rules of the game. And I'm not sure how one gets through the complexity and chaos without culture. Our culture has really shone through, and it has driven all of the initiatives that I'll take you through that have led the organization. The value of our people, of great people. Our people have been incredibly resilient. They've adapted quickly and almost easily to the new world of work. Our values of innovation and drive have really almost overhauled in some cases our products as we try and find ways for people to earn their points and their discovery miles in lockdown. And our leadership team have been really almost dually empathetic and driven. They've displayed tremendous empathy on the one hand and an incredible drive on the other. So some of the initiatives that have been put in place across the board for all of the for discovery people across the board are, well, the one is weekly webinars, which have been absolutely amazing. They've been webinars that have been run by our executives. In some cases, they have interviewed some amazing speakers. Professor Karim was one who told us the story of 2 boats. They interviewed Scott Kelly, an astronaut, which really spoke to what it is to feel isolated for over a year, and that gave us some insight into that isolation. Colin Coleman was another one that they interviewed. He was on last week's webinar. These webinars are incredible in that they provide an opportunity for information, they provide an opportunity for connection, and they reduce the distance that people might be feeling being very far away from the offices, and that's amazing. It's an opportunity for everybody almost to get together and learn. They've been really incredible. The second initiative that they've done, and this is definitely my favorite, and it's typical Adrian Gore stuff, but Adrian sends out a question at the beginning of each week. And it's a question where he invites people to respond to the question with their thoughts around it, and different types of questions. To give you some examples, he asked, how are you adapting to the new world of work one week? He asked, how can we be more supportive? Do you feel supported? I think last week he asked, what are some of your funny lockdown stories, and share that. And then what he does is he takes all of the responses that he gets, and because he has a very open door policy, he gets a tremendous number of responses, but he takes those responses and he collates them into some sort of categorization and shares it with everybody. And that again creates a sense of belonging and a sense of family, and there's shared vulnerabilities and shared connections through that. So that for me has been amazing. The executives have been incredible with their continuous updates. They have been sharing, if it's not via webinars, it's through something more personal like text messages. Barry Schwartzberg did a challah demonstration and shared it with his team and shared the recipe. It's so human and it's so real, and it really helps people to realize that we're all in this together, and it really it's been incredibly motivating. We've had touch points that are available 24/7, so that if people are feeling a bit concerned around how to manage certain things or deal with employee well-being, they're able to connect immediately, and that's been obviously very useful. And then like last week, we onboarded over 100 new employees, and people who have joined us in April and May. And how do you do that? It's one thing to upskill them on the product, but how do you inculcate culture? How do you get them to feel the passion and the energy, when you're not in the hub of one discovery place? There's so much energy in the building, and there's so much. What we realized was that there's a lot available to do this. Within a matter of days, we had converted a lot of our digital our content into a digital format. Still, culture needs stories and it needs human interaction. And so I ran a number of sessions which were interactive, which told the discovery story, which drew on examples past and present to highlight the culture. And I have to say, I was nervous, there's so much pressure to make sure that people really get our culture, because that's what's driving the business at the moment. And what I found was that there was quite a bit of benefit. Look, I'm not sure it replaces completely that the face-to-face interaction, but there was tremendous benefit to using technology. There was the benefit of scale, that you could reach so many people and share a consistent message at once. There was the ability of the delegates to ask questions where they wouldn't feel intimidated to do it in a room of 100. And there was the ability to really connect with people in the setting up of the discussions and the interactions, so that people could really interact with my team and understand what the culture was about. I guess, Dan, at the end of the day, you need a core purpose. You need a why. It's the reason Simon Sinek talks about the why factor, or Samantha Gashel talks about the smell of the place, and David Kramer and Michael Porter talk about shared value. You need a why. You need a core purpose, and our core purpose, everybody knows. It's amazing, and that core purpose has really informed the decisions that we've made, and it's provided tremendous inspiration or aspirational value. It elevates a job to something that's far more meaningful. So I know Howard said try and keep it succinct and short, but I really think that it really is in some of these initiatives. There've been a tremendous number of them, and I feel like I'm not doing my people justice in mentioning all of them, but these are just some of the initiatives. As Yael said, it's the communication. They're all communication type initiatives that really galvanize and unite and really demonstrate authenticity and humanness. And I think that is what's essential at this time. I think that we have to remember that it's about people, across the board, whether it's our clients or whether it's our employees, it's people, people will drive, people will solve this, and that's where we're at. So some ideas, as I say, they've been really successful over the past weeks.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's amazing. And you guys are getting amazing results because, you've touched on culture driving the business. You've touched on the fact that people drive the business, and you've talked about the use of technology to bring people together and to achieve scale. And, I can vouch for that from my side. I mean, I've believed in webinars for a long time, and I think it's just become more and more mainstream, and people are seeing the benefit of that. So that the sooner that one can upskill and start to become confident on these technologies, the sooner one can create these amazing connections and platforms. So that's awesome. That's great. Yael, I want to shift the focus to you for a moment, because you are an SME. Fervor was co-founded by yourself and Bianca, and I believe you're a team of 6 now.
Yes.
So for the entrepreneurs and the small business owners watching at home, what have you done as a small business? I mean, you've spoken briefly about your clients, and you mentioned 3 of the key factors for success during this time. How have you guys responded as a small team? I mean, I'm sure you guys are agile, you're flexible. What have you seen as a team over this time?
Cool. So Dan, I think the one thing that I feel so differently from the other panelists is that obviously our business is so focused on the SME market, and ultimately SMEs don't have the deep balance sheets that can keep paying their employees indefinitely. And that raises different levels of anxiety and uncertainty amongst people. So a lot of the businesses that we're working in, those are really important things that we have to focus on. In our business specifically, we went remote before lockdown kicked in. We kind of saw it coming. Every single one of our team members knows someone who's a high-risk candidate for COVID-19. We took that really seriously. And the day we left our office was a really sad day for us. It's a place that we love being together. It's so calm and soothing, and we just love interacting. We really are like a small family. But we left knowing that we'd connect in other ways. And interestingly, I felt a little bit disconnected when I was leaving the office, because we were so busy on client work, and we were kind of like ships passing in the night. And interestingly, working from home has enabled us to connect far more frequently with each other, which has really been amazing. But I think there are some key things that I'd love to share with you that we've done. So I think the first is our aligned partnership. I think one thing that anyone who's ever worked with us will tell you, whether it's the client or an employee, is that Bianca and I are like yin and yang. We are totally succinct. We're always on the same page. We don't know how it happened. It just did. And even when we go into businesses and we work with co-founders and partners, they just don't have the same relationship that we do. And that's been a real blessing for us. And because we have that, one of the things that was critical to both of us was around what we call communication rhythms. So how do we ensure that we communicate with our employees on an ongoing basis? And we did 3 things. The first is we have team catch-ups 3 times a week. As I said, we're psychologists. We check in, how are people feeling? How are they doing? What challenges are they really facing in their personal lives and in their personal circumstances? And how could we assist them? Those catch-ups allow the team to ask questions, to give suggestions so that we can work together. The second thing is that we do project-based meetings once a week. So all our different clients have different people on them. We get together, we talk about client deliverables. Very importantly, project plans don't exist anymore because the world is changing every single week. So we have to brainstorm, we have to understand what are challenges, we have to try to solve those problems in the moment each and every week. And that allows us to connect and innovate together remotely, interestingly enough. I think the last thing that we do is those one-on-ones. They either happen, as mentioned, like via WhatsApp or text message. My team often just books a coffee catch-up in my diary, and I find that really cool. We just sit at our computers and drink a cup of coffee at the same time. And that's been really meaningful. And then I think lastly is that our culture is felt deeply. We're a small team. We're just a team of 6. We don't have to talk about what our culture is. We do it in everything. We've been blessed to have a really high-performing team, exceptional people. We don't have to micromanage them. They lead themselves very much so. They seek support when they need it. They provide us with so much feedback that we've grown immensely as co-founders of the business more than anything else. So those are some of the things that we've done. And I think, unlike the big corporates, our lease came up to an end at the end of April, and we're not signing on a new lease. We can work from home indefinitely. It's pretty easy. We're still able to connect, and maybe in 6 months' time, we'll be able to have a dinner together somewhere, and hopefully do that more frequently. You don't see the need for an office anytime soon.
Or maybe in 6 months' time, we can go back to WeWork. Who knows? We all gave the thumbs up just before we started. So that's great. And I can relate to that. I mean, yeah, we also, our lease ended towards the end of March or April. And since then, yeah, I mean, we'll take it as it comes. And I think a lot of the audience can relate to that as well. I'm going to shift the focus to learning and development. So Leslie Ann, you used to be the head of learning and development at Investec, and subsequently shifted your role to head of people. But if we talk about training, upskilling, learning and development, how important is that at Investec at a time like this? I think some organizations have, postponed all learning and development. Others have just jumped on the bandwagon because their staff have a lot of extra time. What would you say? I mean, what's the experience been at Investec, and what are some of the key areas of focus for learning and development at the moment?
I think the learning component is really a window into all of what's happening, and a lot of the questions that are coming up from attendees here are pointing to this. Really, I think what COVID has done is that it's accelerated the 21st century organization. It's accelerated the work from home, the high levels of flexibility, the changes to dress code, remote learning, work learning, using and amplifying technology. All of this is in play. And I think the real question that people are asking is, what will be the next world? And I suppose, indeed, the very task of this panel is what will the world look like after this, as much as we can guess. So learning is a beautiful place where this takes place, because we speak about 3 different environments of learning. There's a traditional environment, which is a face-to-face engagement where people in organizations have traditionally learned. They also learn dramatically and in huge ways on the job with what they do. And there's these blended approaches that have both online and face-to-face components, and then totally remote learning, online learning, distance learning. We have preference for all 3. We are not going to choose one over the other. Each has benefit depending on what's happening. The real task is adaptive capability and the learnability. We speak about learnability a lot of the time. Can the organization learn as much as possible in any situation it's in? And what an unbelievable opportunity for us to learn now from each other, from the system, from a way in which the world and the banking sector and the wealth and investment sector have never been tested before. So I think there's 2 levels of learning. There's the formal learning. Can people do courses? Yes, of course. Can they engage in remote learning? And does it really give a little bit of stimulation in a day and change the course of a person's day? We would be happy for that. We think that's part of well-being. Is there even more of an opportunity for us to learn collectively about who our organization is? What are we now, and what will we become? And how can we reflect on that? How can we service our clients better and do more? How can we be more innovative? What have we learned from this? And that's a big piece of where we focused, essentially. We've always believed the work is in the learning, and the learning is in the work. They happen in a very intertwined way, in a very reflective way. And so that's where we're focusing. But I do think that online learning opportunities have been fabulous during this time, and we've been really in favor of employees taking advantage of that, our people learning as much as possible.
Great. Thank you, Les. I mean, just to touch on, if people watching at home are not part of a big corporate organization with a whole learning management system and a whole learning offering, what are based on your experience, some of the reliable platforms? I know there's LinkedIn Learning and there's Udemy, which offer an array of courses, and a lot of these platforms have made things free or very, very affordable in this time. I know we at Excel Academy have created a series of free crash courses on Excel and other topics, just to really help people to upskill during this time. I mean, from your experience, what are some of the best platforms to actually go to? I know there's edX as well.
Yeah, we for a long time have been very open and said that we don't prescribe and send people to learning, but rather they seek it out themselves, because there's so much content available now. So we've loved the LinkedIn Learning. We've seen Coursera. People have enjoyed a lot out of Coursera and the Khan Academy. Udemy as well. I get some good feedback. There's specific ones to banking and investment, like Investopedia and the other investment capabilities. And then various of the business schools have also got capabilities that are significant. MIT, Stanford, and Harvard, have been very significant. Although those are obviously paid for, but we've seen really good outcomes there.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Ian, we've had a question in the Q&A from Ian, another Ian. He says, Ian, you've been a leader who has demonstrated that with the right environment, with a community of people that accept, trust and respect each other, positioned you for success. In this environment where an invisible virus has broken down trust, what advice do you have to establish trusted collaborative teams?
Okay, all right, that's a bit challenging, but let me just share with you the importance of building trust no matter where you are, whether it's in the office or if you're working remotely, it doesn't really matter. Trust is absolutely critical to any type of culture. And I think the real thing now at the moment is getting people to remember the importance of why they come to work in the first place. Most people think they come to work to make money and to earn a salary, and that's the first mistake they make. People actually come to work to serve their customers and to serve others in the organization. And if they serve well, they will make money. So that particular paradigm shift is one that needs to happen in all organizations, to get people to understand why they come to work. In the old Sorbet days, we used to make sure that our beauty therapists knew why they came to work, and the purpose of work for them was to touch people's lives and make them feel good about themselves. And as soon as they shifted that paradigm, and then all of a sudden the customer service came to the fore and the attitude started to actually change. And so if I look back, I think the most successful sort of criteria or our competitive advantage at Sorbet was that attitude. When you came into a Sorbet, you would get the right kind of attitude and hopefully the right kind of service as well. So trust was part of that, respect was part of that, and the leadership then becomes a critical element. So the leaders have to have what I call the moral authority to lead. You can't use your power base anymore. You can't use your hierarchy and your structure and your superiority and look down on people. So this new culture-driven leader that I work with and that I have developed over the years is a person who actually looks at the organization a little differently. He nurtures people and raises them from the bottom up. And he earns that moral authority to lead, which is granted by their employees to the leaders. And they earn that through trust and respect, through showing a commitment to the growth and development of their people, through showing genuine concern for the well-being of all their people, through creating a place of safety in the organization where people can feel free to speak openly without fear or retaliation of some kind. And also, perhaps most importantly, to understand the socio-political environment in which we live, and getting people to understand that what happens outside the organization actually impacts heavily on what happens inside the organization. And so we need to get people to look at things like race relations and history and the conflict of interest and all the differences that exist in organizations, cultures and religions and political views, because those things impact on the culture. And if you can't get people to have a sense of belonging about and a common purpose, okay, I don't think you'll ever be able to get a successful business going. So that sense of belonging, that common purpose, and that understanding that you have about your unconscious biases, your inclusion, the diversity issues, and dealing directly with things like race, which is still such a massive issue in South Africa. And we have such polarization here, and I don't believe that companies are tackling that sufficiently. I don't think they actually, I can't speak for the major corporates like Discovery and Investec, but I think for most of the medium-sized and the SME companies, I don't think they're taking into account the massive impact that the socio-political and economic environment has on the actual work environment. And so I think that the leadership now has to develop what I call a culture-nearing process. You have to develop a culture that is made up of a diverse workforce with lots of differences, who are able to go out there and build a culture of support to go out and serve the customers to the very best of their ability. And I think that's the ultimate prize is your customer, because the purpose of work is never about yourself. It's always about your customers. And the better you serve them, the more money you'll make, and then all things will happen after that.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I love that term, culture-nearing. So culture engineering. And a real focus on values, a real focus on a purpose. I know that Amanda mentioned Simon Sinek. So for those of you who have watched his TED Talk, it is extremely popular, top 5 of all time. And I've got a little clip I'm going to pull up in a couple of moments of Simon Sinek just talking about what he's recommending in terms of a practical tip to keep you and your people connected and mentally, emotionally, psychologically healthy and well during this time. But we are going to pull up a poll for those of you working right now. Do you believe that your organization has a strong and healthy culture? Is it a resounding yes? Absolutely. Is it in some ways but not in others? Or are you unfortunately working as part of a toxic organization, toxic culture? That'll be quite interesting to measure. Okay, thanks for the votes. We're going to leave it up for another 5 seconds or so, and then we're going to watch a little 1-minute clip from Simon Sinek that I found. Okay, good. So let's share those results. Interesting to see that 45% of people, for 45% of people, it's a resounding yes, absolutely, a very strong and healthy culture. So that's a good sign. 41% are saying in some ways, but not in others. And about 15% saying toxic culture, unfortunately. And yeah, obviously that can have some serious consequences in general, and especially in this time. Okay, fantastic. So let's pull up that video. Okay, let me just find it here. Give me one moment.
Hey everyone, had a thought about what Monday might look like for a lot of people. A lot of people are used to going to an office or going to a place of work, and starting Monday, going to be working from home for the foreseeable future. This puts a lot of strain on relationships, our work relationships, because one of the things that makes us get along and builds teams and trust is our interaction. So really strongly recommend starting a huddle, especially on Monday morning when everybody will not be going to work. Basically, huddle is really easy. Get on a Zoom room or some other platform that you like, and have the whole team on the call, and just go around and give everybody 3 minutes to just check in, say how they're feeling, say what's on their heart and mind. It's not about work. Checking in. A huddle is not about work. It's not about discussing projects or to-do lists. You can do that at another call and another time. But establish a habit of every single Monday getting everyone online and looking at each other on a screen and checking in and telling people how you feel. It'll help you stay connected. It helps maintain trust and helps maintain relationships. Good luck, everyone. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Bye.
Yeah, so that was a few weeks back, just before the lockdown started in the States. And yeah, I mean, the importance of a huddle and not work related, just literally checking in and seeing what's going on for people. I think that's hugely, hugely valuable. Rafiel, we're going to shift the focus to you and to mindfulness, mental health and well-being, more important than ever. How are you working with your clients to help them with their mental health? What are some of the practical insights and strategies that you've been implementing? And maybe you can share some of those, and maybe we can actually experience it for ourselves here this evening.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much. Before that, I'd like to share, there's a Malawian proverb that says, be wary when it doesn't say, it says, if you are leading and nobody is following, you're merely taking a walk. And I think, what's happened with the COVID-19 crisis, it's really revealed what organizations are like. And it's also revealed us as people, so the key words have been leadership in this time. So compassionate leadership, but also self-leadership, and self-management and managing our organizations play such a huge role just in terms of how we all show up, whether at a big scale organization or just as individuals. One of the running jokes we have as Mind Revolution is that, the best thing about the COVID-19 crisis is that you cannot avoid yourself. And the worst thing about it is that you cannot avoid yourself. And just in terms of implementing tools and strategies with the various organizations that we're working with, it's really been such an interesting time to understand their culture. We spoke about the importance of culture, but also seeing just how important well-being of their staff has been quite fascinating. And so mindfulness practices, mindfulness is based on neuroscience and neuroplasticity, and that's the brain's ability to adapt and to change shape depending on how you train the muscles of the brain. And that's really the angle that we take, self-leadership, self-management. Another thing that we speak about quite a lot is that, yes, the coronavirus is contagious, but there are other things that are contagious too, in terms of leadership and in terms of self-leadership. And so patience is contagious. Kindness is contagious. Compassion is contagious. We had a webinar with some of your colleagues, Amanda, last week, the HR community, Quello and Stephen and Trevor. And what we really see is the willingness of community. And that's been something that we've really tried to bring out with all the people that we work with, is the willingness of community. And for the first time, people are really seeing one another as human beings as we operate from these remote spaces. We're not in the office. Yes, we have the urgency of the tasks that we have to fulfill. Seshni from Discovery was sharing with me that, one of the things that Adrian was saying is that this is not the time to micromanage, because people are trying to find different ways to manage themselves. So self-management is one of the key things. And General Begigele told us that we have no choice but to stay sober. And that's one of the practices that we have. And my wine resources have run dry. So it's soberness in that aspect. But just to be able to observe yourself and to be with yourself. As human beings, we tend just to overcome and we don't necessarily learn. We always, if we look back into history, we know that the world has always been a deeply complicated place. And so, the willingness to really learn, to learn about ourselves in this time and to learn about the world and to learn about the communities, learn about the organizations that we operate in has been so critical. So one of the practices that we share is sober, and that is to stop, to observe, to breathe, to expand and to respond rather than. There's so many changes happening. There's a lot of choicelessness. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety, all of which is completely normal. It is a part of our human experience, and we would be quite abnormal if we didn't experience some of these things. And most importantly, I'd say from all of those that I've mentioned from sober is breathing. Breathing is something that's so important for our livelihood. If you had to stop breathing, you'd last like a maximum of 4 minutes. Yet this thing that is so important for, just our mere existence is something that we don't really think about, and probably because it happens involuntarily. But if you can slow down your breathing, if you can just learn to identify with that sense of immunity. Breathing is success. We know this. If you're breathing, you're successful these days. And all days. So, when you're ready, Dan, you can guide me, and I would love to take you all through just a very brief 2-minute breathing practice.
Yeah, so that would be amazing, and I think everyone's going to enjoy that and get a lot of benefit. But I love your sober analogy. I'm always a big fan of little processes, 5 steps, 3 steps, whatever it is. So if you can just repeat that, because I see in the chat a couple of people asked, what does the E stand for? Can you repeat sober? I remember you said stop, then?
The first one, so the sober is to stop. So that's really to be able to practice a pause, right? To give yourself a moment to process, to take it all in, and just to observe yourself, right? So the first is stop, and the second is observe, which obviously follows the pause of stopping, because if you can take a moment just to pause and to step back, you can really observe rather than just having your mind and your thoughts and emotions running away with you. And then the B is to breathe. And like I said, breathing exemplifies success. If we can breathe, we can be successful, but also if we can breathe, we can calm ourselves. It's one of the greatest self-management tools that are available to every single human being. And then we have E, that is to expand. And expand gives you the opportunity to have a varied perspective. So you're not just locked down in what your normal autopilot reaction or autopilot thought would be. You can expand your perspective. You can see someone else's perspective, and maybe you can have an unusual way of seeing something that you ordinarily would see in a linear in a linear way. And then the R is to respond. And responding is the opposite of reacting. To respond is to take all the information in and to make an informed decision of what the action to take is, or what the speech to take is. And in responding, you can save many lives and many relationships, because you really do step back and you really give yourself the opportunity to communicate effectively.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for sharing and elaborating. I love that. I think if we're not sober enough during lockdown as the wine runs out, we can just sober up that much more by stopping, observing, breathing, expanding, and responding. So thank you so much. And Rafael, I think we should go into let's experience a 2-minute mindfulness breathing exercise. Let's give it a go.
All right, fantastic. Okay, guys, so wherever you are, I'm assuming that many of you are sitting on a chair, so I'm going to invite you just to make yourself a little bit more comfortable. And then make sure that your feet are grounded to your floor, so giving yourself a solid foundation and placing your feet side by side. So you want to make sure that they're not crossing over. And then finding a comfortable position for your hands, so either placing one palm on top of the other in your lap, or if you're sitting at a table, you're welcome to place your hands on the table. It's just important that you relax your hands. And then just having your spine straight and strong, so dignified, a great posture to help you to relax. And then actively relaxing your shoulders, so dropping your shoulders down. And without dropping your head down, just very gently tucking your chin towards your chest. And then soften and relax your jaw. Completely relax your belly. And then just take a moment to close your eyes. So in closing your eyes, you help to withdraw your senses. You're not distracted by everything that you see around you. And then just practicing that pause that we spoke about. So just stopping. And then observing, watching, feeling, allowing. And so all the time we're asked, how are you? And all the time we respond, quite lazily sometimes, I'm well, I'm fine, I'm sad. And this is an opportunity just to really check in on how you are. How are you feeling? What thoughts are arising? And just watching your thoughts. So
Just like we don't try to stop our liver or our kidneys or our hearts or any other organ, we also don't try to stop our brains, we just observe it. We allow it to show us our thoughts. We allow it to help us become more familiar with some of the experiences in our mind. Now just bringing your focus to your breath. Just watching your breath for a moment, getting a gauge of whether your breath is shallow or deep. Is it flowing freely? Does it feel constricted, conflicted? And as we observe our breath, doing so, bearing the mindful attitudes in mind, we do so non-judgmentally, non-reactively, open-heartedly. Now we can start to deepen our breath. Taking deep, strong inhales through your nostrils. And then big, strong exhales out through your nostrils again. Continuing these deep breaths, and in this fashion, actively pursuing our breathing. You may find that it helps to stay focused on your breath if you count your breath. Then your next inhale, counting for 4. Taking a pause at the top of your breath and then releasing for a count of 4. When you start to get distracted by your thoughts, no worries, no drama. Without judgment, just gently returning your focus to your breathing. Just like that, we're practicing mindfulness. Paying attention to what we're paying attention to. Practicing neuroplasticity. Relaxing the jaw again. Keeping breathing flowing deeply and strongly. And taking a moment to express gratitude for your breath. All the things it does for you on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-to-moment basis. All right, let's take one deep inhale together. And this time with your mouth open, completely releasing, relaxing. And once again, just taking a moment to observe and just to feel how you are now. When you're ready, gently opening your eyes. Amanda, you look like you're going to fall off the chair.
Wow, that was great. That was amazing. I feel so much better.
Mother of 6 kids. You said a mother of 6 kids closed her eyes. You might not wake her up.
Great, thank you, Rafila. Thank you. So for our viewers at home, if they want to start integrating some mindfulness techniques and some practical tips for the coming days and coming weeks, so I think SAJR is a great place to start. In terms of mindfulness, do you have any recommendation? Are there platforms that or apps or sites, YouTube videos? I'm sure there's a ton of stuff out there. I mean, what are your personal favorites?
Well, my personal favorite is Mindful Revolution, Dan.
Yes.
And those are my daily mindfulness practices. We've been doing quite a lot of work, right? I mean, for example, tomorrow we're hosting something around mental health, and everything that we do, we incorporate mindfulness practices, but also understanding that mindfulness is not as complicated as we make it out to be, and it also doesn't demand you taking 20 minutes or 30 minutes out, just 1 minute, when you have an opportunity just to catch yourself, to observe yourself. A lot of the opinions that we have about things, even of ourselves, are not informed opinions, because we don't really stop to observe and to watch ourselves. So really welcome to reach out to me, and I'd love to share some tools and some practices. I'm sure you can share my contact details, but also there's so many ways that we can be mindful just in our day-to-day tasks, how we take care of our family, and really seeing that as an act of service rather than a duty that we have to do, just slowing down, appreciating the small things, our sense of sight, our sense of smell, our sense of touch, just engaging with ourselves in ways that are unusual, are all tools for mindfulness.
Brilliant. We're going to ask the audience a question. So how do you feel about mental wellness in your organization at the moment? Let's get a sense. Would you say it's under control and in a really good space, not so great, very concerning, maybe disastrous, or is it not applicable to you? Okay, so by the way, while you are answering that question, we got the poll up on the screen. We will share all of the contact details in an email together with the link to the recording tomorrow. So absolutely, we will definitely share that all tomorrow. Okay, so again, quite heartening to see that the majority say under control and in a good space from a mental wellness perspective, 36%, 26% saying not great, but there are some numbers that we're seeing here very concerning and disastrous. Okay, so thanks for your votes. I'm gonna ask Howie, have you been monitoring the Q&A? There have been a number of questions coming through. Howie, is there anything that you've spotted there in the Q&A that you think we should give to the panel to discuss?
Yes, there are a lot of questions that have come in via the Q&A, and maybe we can actually do that. The first is from Glenda Lansky, who says, as an interior designer and specialist in space planning, does the team believe there's going to be a huge change in corporate space with health regulations? In essence, will there be a positive area for our industry to create using the space and facilities they have, social distancing, managed stations for sanitization, staff areas for entrances and departures? But I think the question is really about, what does office space look like in the future?
So Howie, thanks for reading out that question. Did we direct that to anyone, or is there anyone on the panel who wants to volunteer there?
To take it.
Well, I'm happy to respond just with an example of one of my clients, right? One of the businesses that we service is APSA, and someone went into the office last week and shared that it looks like a completely different environment. It's definitely like the building that he left 6 weeks ago or when lockdown began. In the elevator, as you walk in, there's steps of where you can stand as you move into the buildings. The open plan spaces are now being converted to isolated offices as they once were. So I think from an opportunity perspective and space planning, just in my view and hearing that context, there will be opportunities for redesigning office spaces, because we all know that we can't afford to have the spaces as they were, especially in some of these corporates that have open plan spaces.
But I do think I would add to that and say that I think that there'll be a phased approach to things, and that for now, absolutely, we single entrance screening as people come in, distance in terms of how people sit, Places like canteens and coffee shops inside our environments can't exist. They're closed now, they can't exist as they used to. But if I was to answer the question of is the way in which we've lived, like open plan, dead, I would say no. But I would say again, the point of that maybe I referenced before, the point of moving into the 21st century organization requires us thinking much more deeply about office space. And that space should represent culture. It should look like how we speak about our environments. If we speak about transparent environments that have high degrees of freedom, and then people are constrained to a desk and a space and a cubicle, that's not living the culture. We should create spaces where people connect, spaces where people eat together, where they work together, where they collaborate in far more interesting ways. And so if this accelerates that, another positive thing will have come out of COVID. The social distancing and we also have, standing at distances and not being close to each other. That's very hard for people, and their connectedness is lost, and it's quite sad inside the organization to see that happening. So hopefully with, time and vaccines and how this resolves, we'll see a return to offices with high degrees of remote possibilities as well, and a better use of our space.
Great. Thank you. I've launched a poll. Sorry, Howie. I've launched a poll here saying, if lockdown were to end this evening, what would you want to do tomorrow morning? Would you go straight back into the office? Would you work from home as much as possible for as long as possible? Would you try and find your own unique balance, or is it not applicable to you? Again, apologies. I actually haven't mentioned this, but the polls don't come through on YouTube, so we do apologize for that. There's nothing we can do about that. So if you're on Zoom, give us your votes there in the next couple of seconds. And interesting results. We can end that and share the results here. Okay, and 44% saying they would try to find a balance. Okay, 17% saying straight back into the office ASAP. And there's 30% of people that are saying work from home as much as possible for as long as possible. I think that speaks to the people who have found their groove and found that work-life balance, work-family life, cooking, cleaning balance, which is not easy, but I think people are finding their groove. Howie, anything else interesting in the Q&A that is worth discussing now?
A lot, Dan. So just a reminder to everyone watching, if you have a question for the panels, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. That's the way to ask the panel a question. And we have a question from Safisa, and I'd like to direct this at Yael because it's about performance management. And Safisa says, in a world of work where output was measured using KPIs, what's appropriate in our new way of working? As our businesses have shifted, are we still going to be performance managed in the same way?
Okay, such an interesting question. And I think I touched on it a little bit earlier that our businesses have really had to pivot when it comes to performance management. So maybe just to give you some experience shares, just from what we're seeing at this point in time with our own team, for example, and with some of our clients, is that, and I think what's really important for me to talk about is that this is in the SME market. So unlike corporate businesses, as I mentioned earlier, who have far more cash flow than smaller businesses do, performance of businesses in this time is really, really critical. If people are wanting to keep their jobs, to help businesses sustain for a long period of time, performance is going to be key. But I think there needs to be a balance. I think there needs to be a balance between what are goals and what do people need to achieve, and having a side of leadership that speaks to empathy and understanding different circumstances. So from what we've seen and what we've done in our own business and with a lot of clients is that we've really had meaningful conversations with leaders to say, what does the next month look like to you? And if we were able to give every single department and every single person some clarity on what they need to do to help the business move forward in that time. You can call it what you want. You can call it a KPI, a key performance indicator. You can call it an OKR, an objective or key result. You call it a goal. Doesn't matter what you want to call it, but we have to ensure that people, especially in the SME market, are working towards something to to help the businesses hopefully see the light at the end of this tunnel, because they just don't have the big cash flow. So from our perspective, we think that performance is critical, but I do think it needs to be done in a way with leaders where people are supported. And what that means is that the way in which they work might be different. So it might not be an 8 to 5 job. If you've got kids, you're probably trying to balance between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. at night, trying to get your work done. As long as you understand what you needed to do and you're able to do that in the time frame, and be honest with your manager when you're not, and brainstorm how you can try to work on that effectively, I think that's really key. But I definitely think that performance, in whatever shape or form you want to call it, is still necessary and important.
So can we ask a question, Dan, about how do you manage teams? As a manager, when you used to, in fact, staring at your staff in the face every single day, and it's quite easy to manage and check their performance, you're now all disparate, spread all over the place. So how, in fact, do you manage a team remotely, and how do you ensure you're achieving those sorts of KPIs and goals that Yael spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think just to add to that question, just because a person is in the office with you, does it mean that you're on top of them and that they're being productive? And do you need to see them in person to make sure that they're working? You can have people in their little cubicles in the office who are on Facebook, and their time is divided between the water cooler and the coffee and the Facebook and their emails. And I watched a fascinating TED talk by Jason Fried, who's the founder of Basecamp. His TED talk was 10 years ago, and he did a webinar last week. And he said for him, managing teams remotely, it's more about a feeling. It's more about a sense of the softer skills, the sense of are you being productive? Are you feeling productive? Are you part of a team where people are checking in? And Yael mentioned the KPIs or the OKRs. I think it's from my perspective. Look, I'm not part of a massive team, but I just don't think we need to be in the flesh anymore. I mean, does the panel want to comment on that?
Dan, I'll speak to that. Because I think that two distinct evolutions have taken place in the world of work. And the one is the evolution of business, and the other one is the evolution of the employee. And what's happened in the evolution of business is that where businesses used to be fairly linear and fairly supply and demand and kind of easy to respond, they've evolved over time. And then what you got, it's perhaps mapped against Canavan's theory, which is a complex theory, but in essence, what's happened is that businesses have moved from this very simple to perhaps a bit more complicated, where you needed the domain of experts to get involved, to where we are today, where it's quite complex. There's multiple variables, there's many unknown unknowns, it's unpredictable. And then you're taking that complexity of business and placing it in a complex environment, in uncertainty, and then add to that a pandemic. So you've seen this like real evolution of business over the years, and the way in which the nature of business has evolved. Park that for a second, and then let's look at the employee and the way in which the employee has changed. And I've watched employees over the years, as I've watched them coming into our organization, employees have changed as well. Employees used to want stability and jobs that paid the bills, that provided dignity of hard work, and they were hard workers who really did build organizations initially. And then you had your Generation X's who came in and said, actually, we value loyalty and we value commitment, and we're going to play leadership roles within our organization and build those organizations. And today what we've got are our millennials. And our millennials, I mean, I look at their discovery people that we're onboarding, or the talent that we're searching for. Before they ask us about remuneration or about what the job that they're going to be doing, before they ask us those questions, they're asking us, will their jobs make a difference? Can they add meaning? What value will they add? That's the way in which that's the language that they're using. And Gen Zs are even more so. They don't even understand why you need an office, in a world of Uber and Airbnb where everything is so fluid and mobile, what is the point? So you've got this dual evolutionary process where businesses have changed over the years and employees are changing, and they're kind of now coming together, and then you've got AI, you know, and you spiraled into AI. And again, I'm going to come back to your culture, because and it was so heartening for me to see that one poll where people said that their cultures are intact. I think that's accurate, and I do. I think because culture is the way in which you can lead in this very, very complex environment. And that's why companies are turning to culture and establishing those cultures. And that's why the Simon Sineks are talking about culture. And just to Les's point, you know, it's such a wonderful opportunity this time. I know it's hard to find a silver lining in a pandemic, but if there is a silver lining, it is, as Les pointed out, we mustn't miss the opportunity to really upgrade our knowledge and to upskill and to reskill and to unlearn and to relearn, you know, because it's an opportunity to do so, and it's an opportunity to do so in a very forgiving environment, because we're all in it together. So we're all learning, because if AI had just taken place, I suspect many people would have been left behind, you know, by the catapulting into an AI future world of work. But in a sense, what this period has done for us is put us there, but done it in quite a forgiving environment where we can all learn, where if you're not so good at Zoom, it's okay. Not everybody's so good at Zoom, you know, and it's fine. And I think that we should really make use of the opportunity. So the employees are different, and the world of work is different, but, you know, we're drawing on our culture to kind of drive that and to use this opportunity and this time.
So Dan,
Brilliant.
we're going to take a minute-long break, because Amanda brought up an important point about learning. And one of the key elements of learning within the Jewish community is, in fact, e-learning and Limmud. And next week, Sunday, in fact, we have Limmud, what normally is a large gathering of a few thousand people around the country gathering together to learn together, participate, debate, negotiate, and deal with issues. Next Sunday is in fact going to be Limmud, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Ryan Davis, who is chair of Limmud. Ryan, welcome. This is actually an area of your expertise we're busy talking about tonight, is it not?
Yeah, thanks, Howie. It's great to be with you. And as always, you guys are putting on an amazing show, and I don't want to take too much time away from this incredible panel. And it's great to see a lot of colleagues on the call, answering a lot of the questions that my coaching and consulting clients are asking all the time. So just, yeah, guys, keep going, and I won't take up too much of the time. But we are talking about learning, and I think, as Howie said, we are putting on an Limmud for Limmud South Africa next week, and some people in the audience might have already attended a Limmud in the past. We like to believe that it's a magical experience, and Limmud really is a world leader in Jewish education and culture, which we've been speaking about a lot today. So for the first time ever, I'm going to just quickly share my screen just so we can show you a few of the speakers that are going to be, the presenters that are going to be presenting at our Limmud conference coming up next week. It's the first time ever that we're going online, and obviously because of the time. And I think we've been speaking on webinars and with clients constantly about this crazy Zoom fatigue that everyone is experiencing, but also the incredible content that is online at the moment. So this is definitely not for the sake of having another learning opportunity, because there are incredible things happening. But I think what for me is the simplest way to put it is that just as the South African Jewish Report is creating a space to grow Jewish community and sustainable communities of the future, that's really what Limmud is all about. We're coming together, as I said, for the first time online, the first time national, Joburg, Cape Town, and Durban, inviting the rest of Limmud from across the world and newbies onto the call, with really world-class speakers, from thought leaders to rabbis to commentators on Israel and politics. We've got filmmakers and artists and social justice activists, musicians, authors of the best authors in the world, in the Jewish world. And we want to just invite everyone to really take time to join us. Limmud's all about choice. It's about building a community. And for those that have been before will know that to not be in person learning together as participants is a big step back. But we are doing our best to give people as much choice, with a range, as I say, of incredible 28 choices to choose from over a 4-hour period, local and international top-notch speakers from across the world. You can see some of them on the screen. I'm not going to mention them by name specifically, but what we're trying to do is bring back the superstars of the past 13 years of Limmud, as well as new dynamic speakers specifically in our local circuit as well. I think just
so,
to
Ryan,
maybe,
can I say you have my favorite Limmud speaker of all time on, and that's Rabbi Nathan Cardozo, who will be joining us from Jerusalem next Sunday. If people have never heard him speak, he is a professor of philosophy, a Dutch professor of philosophy, and one of the greatest thought leaders of the Orthodox world, a truly remarkable individual. And I see he's not on your list, but I see it was announced today that, in fact, the former chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Lau, will be guest at Limmud FSU, which is the Soviet Union Limmud. Rabbi Lau will be a guest at FSU Limmud.
Yeah, Howie, you're ahead of the crowd. I saw your tag on Facebook already, and we are, as planned. We always host Limmud, our conference across South Africa, in August. There's still 100% planning going towards that, whether it's in person or whether it's going to be online. And we want to encourage our community from across the road. From across the world, Howie is a regular sellout crowd presenter at Limmud. He is going to be a participant this time round, but we want to invite suggestions as we move forward. The idea really is we've seen something so incredible happening with what you guys are putting on. So many South Africans and other people across the world are not feeling as part of the Jewish community as they used to be, and these webinars have really brought people back into the fold with relevant, inclusive topics. And that's really what Limmud is all about. So what I want to encourage people to do is to join us. Tickets are on sale now. I'll just put up these links now, and I'll ask Dan maybe to send them out when he sends out the email tomorrow. But tickets, we based on where we're at right now, tickets are 180 Rand per device. You can watch with the whole family or sign in a few of you. And because of what we're going through right now, if you've been affected by COVID-19, tickets are available at 18 Rand to anyone that can join. This is really about bringing as many people on board to feel the magic of this community, this Limmud community, and to find whatever it is, whether it's social justice or Torah or art and culture or Zionism or literature, whatever it is that connects you to Judaism and the Jewish community, you're going to find it there. So we want to invite you, and we can't wait to, I suppose, in brackets, see you there.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. Will you post the details of where we can book tickets into the chat section of this Zoom? And I'm sure a lot of people will, in fact, be booking. And once again, next Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's next Sunday. There are 4 sessions with 7 different choices in each slot, from Nathan Lopez Cardozo to Chad Nathan and Josh Rubin, who are taking the photography world by storm, Yossi Klein Halevi, Paul Leslier, who's a favorite, and on and on and on. So can't wait to see you guys there.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Emil, Howie. Thanks, Dan. And
thanks,
amazing work as always. And thanks to everyone else. Incredible webinar.
Great. Thank you. So Howie, you've been monitoring the Q&A. So I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Sure. So there's a question from Ian that's really aimed at Les. And Ian says, a short while back, Investec introduced relaxed dress codes, which clearly must have prepared staff for the ability to work at home. But what impacted that, kind of the relaxed dress codes, the fact that you could take as much leave as you want? How did that impact on the business, and how did that impact on really the efficiency and the productivity of the business?
So I think that it's been well formulated, that idea. And absolutely, like I've been referencing the whole conversation, we're moving towards the 21st century organization. We're accelerating the pace that the organization moves to really be cutting edge and reflect an age of wisdom, this 4th industrial revolution that is upon us. It has positioned us exceedingly well, thankfully, for the time that we're in. And really, the reason why is because we took away aspects such as dress that was about constraint and about instructing people what to do, and gave high levels of freedom and said, dress for your day. We didn't relax the dress code and say, don't wear a suit. We said, just dress for your day and wear whatever it is that you need to wear for that day in order to do your work in that day. Similarly with leave, really what we went after with leave was to say, we focus on output. We want to redefine time inside this organization. And we don't just want to remunerate you for time, we want to remunerate you for value. We're about output. And it would go to the previous question, even on performance. We're after performance. It's we are high performing environments, all of us, and we're after seeking the best of people. But people know how they perform best, and it's not within necessarily the constraints that we all put upon people. So I think the remote nature of what's obviously happened now and a balanced version of time lends itself well to the idea of flexible leave and time, relaxed dress. I'm assuming people have been in their pajamas for days and weeks now, and that the idea of getting back into a suit will be very hard for many people going forward. But really also what we encourage, and I think it also refers to a previous question around leadership, really what we've encouraged in leadership is to say the art of and the mastery of leadership is high levels of empathy while understanding value. And if you can balance these two things, an organization that's strong on empathy, but with an exceptional focus on value, what is value creation? What creates commercial value for the end client at the end of the day? You have a heady mix that would give really good results to an organization, and your culture underpins that.
Thanks, Les. So, sorry, Howie, just to add to that, I'll mention that I put on a pair of jeans for this occasion. So that's the first time in a while. And secondly, I've just noticed the word empathy come up a lot in this conversation, and I've heard it a lot spoken about over especially the past few weeks and months. And I also noticed a comment in the chat saying, how are other countries coping? Israel, the US, the UK, are we taking examples from them? Can we provide examples to them? So I have to mention a leader of New Zealand, the leader of New Zealand, the Prime Minister, who's in my opinion, and according to a lot of sources, getting it right. I know we're talking about work here, but leadership as a topic has been a main theme of this evening. So I have to mention Jacinda Ardern. She is 39 years old. If you don't know, New Zealand's Prime Minister may be the most effective leader on the planet right now. And her leadership style focused on empathy isn't just resonating with her people, it's putting the country on track for success against the coronavirus. And I have to play you a few seconds of a little clip. This was just as they were entering their lockdown, probably about 6 weeks ago. I'm going to make sure that my sound is on, and I'm going to play you a few seconds because she was in her hoodie at home and sharing some of
Shouldn't be going out to work. And those essential services are really...
Okay, so we're having a problem with that video there, but you can look her up, and for me that's just an amazing example of just really showing compassion and empathy. And as Les said, obviously finding that balance between the empathy and compassion together with the value. We can't just have empathy and compassion. Where's the actual value? And I think finding that balance is critical, but a real focus now more than ever on empathy and compassion.
I want to maybe direct the question at Ian. He told us earlier when we were doing a test run for this that maybe he was bringing the age of this panel up a little. But there is a question about, I think when Amanda and Les talk about the sort of companies that they deal with, these are very young, youthful companies. But there are companies with a more aged population of employees, people who are not as tech savvy as maybe some of the people who are coming in kind of straight after graduating. And how, in fact, do you deal with a culture where everything's moved over to technology and maybe the older generation in the workplace are not as comfortable in using that tech as the youngsters are?
So, right, I think that's a very interesting question because it's about paradigm shifting. It's about trying to get people to understand the need for change and the need to go into this new world with us and not get left behind. And it can be challenging for people. They're afraid of technology, the older generation. And so you have to really work with them and you have to get them to understand what it's all about. And once again, it comes back to leadership. And leadership is the key, I think, here for all of this, is to get people on board with you, to get everybody in the organization, regardless of who they are, how old they are, what they look like, where they come from, to all have a sense of belonging in the organization. And that's what we're doing at the Hatch Institute now, is we're trying to develop leaders. And one of the things that we're trying to do at the time is to get leaders to understand their own personal development. And what has happened a lot in organizations over the years is that we try and get leaders to make changes in organizations. We try and get them to change cultures. But unfortunately, we don't always get them to change themselves. And there's often a lot of things that need to change within the leaders themselves in order for them to have a positive influence on the rest of the organization. And so we do a whole personal development program for people, and we get them to understand what are the things that may be blocking them in their lives, what are their blind spots, what are their unconscious biases, what are their fears, what are their ego issues, and all of those things, so that they can ultimately change and become influential as leaders. Because if you can't change an organization or a culture if you haven't been able to transform yourself. So that's one of the things that we're doing at Hatch. And so the personal development of leaders is one of the key things going forward in this country, as far as I'm concerned.
So Dan, there is a message as well that's coming from Donna Druin. And I think it's justifiable criticism in some way. She says, it's one thing to hear from Les and from Amanda. They work for huge corporations with massive budgets, with big human resources departments. It's easy for them to talk. There's budget to do all of these things. But it's a very different world out there if you deal with the world of the restaurants and the hairdressers and the nail salons. And in a smaller environment, this is much more difficult. And maybe Yael can speak to that, because Yael does deal in the SME space with non-corporatized entrepreneurial environments. And how are some of your clients dealing with what's happening at the moment?
Okay. So Howie, it's such a tough question to answer. Obviously, each industry and business is so different. I think we have seen a lot of our clients moving on to short time. Because ultimately they cannot sustain paying their employees on an ongoing basis. I know in our business, preserving the jobs of our employees was really something so critical. And as a leadership team, Bianca and I chose to take cuts in our own salaries just to ensure that we can secure our employees. And that's been something that's been really meaningful for us and something that we really wanted to do. But I think for small businesses, it's just not that easy. So, our business has launched a whole lot of articles on how to manage Corona. We've tried to do those for free so any businesses can access them. Even our clients who haven't been able to afford our services during this time, we've landed up offering them quite a bit of work for free, sharing resources with them at no cost whatsoever, just to try and help them in the best possible way we can. But ultimately, as we carry on in this lockdown phase, and it could go on for a significant period of time, businesses are going to potentially get into more and more challenging circumstances and situations. I think, again, it comes back to the leaders and what their values are. So with a lot of our clients, they have put their employees first, and they have really tried to do whatever they possibly can to sustain their people, to guide and support them as much as they possibly can. But I think my biggest concern is that we're going to get to a point in time where how much more sustenance do they have in their bank accounts to continue this process? And the sad reality of that is that more and more people are going to lose their jobs. And I think what businesses are doing, what the government is encouraging, is that you do move on to short time. So for people who don't know what that is, that's reducing your salary by a certain percentage as well as your time. But it does enable that more and more employees can keep their jobs for a longer period of time. And that's definitely number one. And if that's not possible, it's a sad reality that businesses land up moving into positions of retrenchment. At this point in time, we haven't seen a ton of our clients actually doing that. And we kind of are pushing them in the best possible way. But that's why the performance conversation is so critical. And I think in our space, being an empathetic leader, when you're trying to keep your business alive, is probably one of the hardest things to do. Because on one hand, you've got to drive and push and get people to provide value and carry on burning as much as they possibly can. But at the same time, you need to be empathetic of the trauma and the struggle that they're all going through in their personal circumstance. So yeah, I think it's a tough question to answer, but I think you need a definite balance of performance and guide. And I think leaders who really care about their people will do what they can to put them first. But my big concern is that runway and that engine isn't going to last necessarily for everyone indefinitely. And that's why I think your conversation last week about how do we get the economy back going is a really critical one too.
Yeah, thanks, Yael. Great insights. I've just pulled up a poll just to get a sense of remuneration issues in your organization. How have they been handled? Let's get a sense for how you're feeling at the moment. Okay, it is heartening to see the numbers coming in. Okay, we're going to give it a couple more seconds. And okay, great. Thank you for your votes. Let's share those results. And 46% saying excellent. So that's for me quite a good sign. Yeah, that's good to know.
That's very good.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So yeah, so Howie, you've turned off your camera and your audio. I'm not sure if you want to share or we want to field one or two more questions. It is getting quite late, and I think we do want to wrap things up. We also want to talk about the upcoming panel. Howie, do you want to share what we've got in store on Tuesday night?
Yes, absolutely. So in Tuesday night, one of the big issues that I think so many people in this country are facing is the issue of education. What do you do with your kids during this time? Amanda, you've got kids at university, you've got kids in matric, you've got kids all over the place. I think parents are so stressed and stretched between trying to do homework and trying to work and being interrupted the entire time. And should you be homeschooling, and what is the role of the school as opposed to the parent in all of this? And I think so many people are actually understanding that while you pay the school to educate your kid, you're really paying more for them to babysit your kid during the day, so you have time to do other stuff as well. So Tuesday, we've got an amazing panel. We've got kind of headmaster from King David Victory Park. We've got headmaster from Bella Vista. We've got the vice chancellor of the University of Johannesburg. We've got educational experts in formal educational and formal education, all coming in on an amazing panel on Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock. And we're going to be talking about education and what education looks like in the post-COVID era. So for all the parents out there, we think it will be an enormously practical, useful panel to try get everyone to try create some level of sanity in education during this process. And we'll be touching on education of all ages, university education, high school, primary education, all together. So Dan, that's coming up on Tuesday night, and that is our next panel as well.
Yeah, and the link is not live yet, but that will be the 18th panel. So the link will be the same as all the other ones, but just with an 18 at the end instead of the other numbers. And we will let you know as soon as that panel, that registration link is live. You will be hearing from us. You will be hearing from us tomorrow with the contact details and the YouTube links and everything that we shared this evening. And yeah, from my side, just a massive thank you to everybody who's tuned in, and a massive thank you to Howie for all of your help and charisma and enthusiasm in driving this, and to all of our remarkable panelists. It's been an absolute privilege to be up here engaging with you guys. So I've really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and I do trust that our viewers at home feel the same way. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Cool. So how are we going to end with the video?
There may still be some people out there who would like to make a contribution to make sure that the Juice Report can continue to publish. So Dan, if you don't mind playing our video one last time and leaving up the banking details for a few minutes, just a thank you to everyone, and we'll see you again on Tuesday evening.
Hi, I'm Howard Saxton, Chairman of the South African Juice Report. And we at the Juice Report believe that Jewish organizations would be made or broken by how they serve their community during this impossibly difficult time. Our first decision was to continue to publish and to deliver newspapers not just to shops, but to people's townhouses and apartment blocks as well. Because feeling part of a community is one of the greatest services we could ever deliver to the Jews of South Africa. Our second decision was to create a platform for information, education and entertainment for the entire Jewish community and for South Africa as a whole. Over the past few weeks, we have created Zoom panels that have attracted tens of thousands of viewers. Some of the best healthcare specialists in South Africa gave practical advice on how to stay safe during Corona. Psychologists taught people how to stay sane, and wellness experts made sure that our minds and bodies were kept fit and healthy. One of the things we are most proud of is how we have highlighted the work done by so many Jews and Jewish organizations in feeding the needy and producing masks for both our own community as well as the townships. But now we at the Jewish Report face our own challenges to survive as advertising dries up. And so we are appealing to you. If you are one of our 55,000 readers, or if you are amongst the tens of thousands of people who have enjoyed our Zoom panels, now we at the Jewish Report are asking for your support. Please give generously to us so we can continue to publish and continue to serve you in this remarkable fashion.
Cool, everyone. Thank you all. Have a good night. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Thank you to all our panelists. Good night.